So, to discuss argument, let's take a look at Ralph Waldo Emerson's The American Scholar, which is a fantastic essay. I'm a huge fan of Emerson. We're going to look at the beginning of the third part, in which Emerson writes about the relationship between action and thought. And before we begin, you might imagine there was a question on an exam. Something like, nowadays in education, the idea of learning seems to be more books, more classes, more time studying. Do you agree with this method of education? That seems like a reasonable question to get on an exam like the IELTS. And you would ask yourself, do I agree with this? Take a side, and you would write a response. Now, of course, Emerson wasn't given this question. He didn't write this for a test, but we could imagine how this response might fit into that context and maybe see what kind of score Emerson would have gotten. In fact, in Emerson's essay, which was originally a lecture, it's all one paragraph, I think. But I have broken it into these 5 paragraphs so that you can see how Emerson moves between the ideas that we have talked about: value, problem, answer, and meaning. And again, not every writer always uses this. Even Emerson does not always use this. But I want you to see that it can help you, maybe when you have to take a test. Also, Emerson seems very fond of what I call the bump bump. You say something and you say it again. That's usually because he brings 2 very sophisticated and subtle ideas suddenly together. And it's quite insightful, it's quite valuable, but he often pairs it with an example to help the reader understand, and then also that parallelism gives greater rhetorical effect. I know that was some big words, I apologize, but just as an example, you can look at the first sentence. Emerson says there's a notion that a scholar should be a recluse, doing no work, or very little work, just like a penknife should not be used for an axe. That's what I mean. He uses these complex words like a scholar and a recluse and a valetudinarian, and then he helps you understand it with something you know, like a small penknife cannot be used to chop wood. He's saying some people think a studious scholar, a student, should not do real work, just like you should not use a penknife to hack at wood. That's all one sentence, but I just want to give you an example of the way Emerson often seems to write. He pairs up these sophisticated ideas with things you really get. I have drawn the way I think Emerson has organized his ideas. This picture is a little bit of a lie, but for simplicity's sake, we'll say he is using argument structure here to establish value. And in fact, he's actually helping us to smirk a little bit. We're kind of laughing at what some people might think is valuable. In America, there's a tradition that a man should be strong. He should be able to do things. And already, even though he hasn't moved into problem, we can tell from his language that we're kind of laughing at this idea. And indeed, there's only one sentence of problem. He says, that idea of scholars being penknives that shouldn't chop wood is not right. In fact, action is essential but subordinate. This is a difficult idea, and for that reason, this paragraph runs a little longer. He has to show that action is essential, it's necessary. But it's not everything. You still have to bring it into thought, to mind. So let's talk about that in the next video.